So would you so kindly join me in the pledge of allegiance? I appreciate it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There you call roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem Scott Funk,
Present.
Councilmember Liz Silva,
Present.
Councilmember Lorraine Worthy,
Present.
Councilmember Mario Orozco,
Present.
Mayor Jose Rios.
Present. All righty, moving on, we have a presentation, Diorigo, H2A housing.
Thank you, Mayor Rizos. I'd like to introduce John Culligan and Catherine Avila for them to introduce and present their project to us. The proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chavin. Good evening, Mayor and City Council people. Appreciate your time in hearing this presentation tonight. My name is Catherine Avila. I'm with Avila Construction, and we have been hired by Diorigo, California to work on an agricultural housing project just outside the city of Gonzales. So really excited to share with you this project today. We're very excited about it. I know Diorigo, California is as well. And I want to stress to you that we're bringing this to you very early. So we actually don't have a planning application into the County of Monterey yet. This is a very initial presentation to you all as a first look. We know that we're your neighbor and we want to be respectful of that. So with that said, I think we'll get into it. Do we have the presentation queued up? Perfect. All right, so skip a couple slides ahead for me. All right, great. So I'll first go over project location. This is on the east side of the highway between Johnson Canyon and Johnson Creek off of Fano Road. You can see in the yellow areas the approximate project location. This is a much larger parcel, but we'll be using a small portion of the parcel fronting Fano. The project is immediately next to an existing housing project, I believe operated by the Housing Authority of Monterey County or one of their subsidiaries. And the project architect on our proposed project is actually the same one that worked on that neighboring project. So this property is in the county, and the use that's proposed for agricultural housing is allowed with the use permit in the County of Monterey. All right, next slide, thank you. So I'll go over some summary level basics with you. I do want to apologize in advance. I noticed a typo as I was reviewing today. So this summary slide says there are 139 residence apartments in total. It should be 137. So you can just make that note and I'll correct that with staff for their file as well. So this project is proposed in 3 phases. You can see a site plan here. You can imagine the highway is off to the kind of western or left side of this slide. And each phase, it consists of 3 buildings of approximately 45 units each. Phase 1 would have 45 units and the subsequent phases 2 and 3 would have 46 each. And at full build out, like I said, that means 137 apartments, 1 manager's unit, 3 rec rooms, 3 laundry rooms, and about 375 parking stalls. And to boil that down for you, that's about 2.7 stalls per living unit. And the goal of this project is to provide provide quality and dignity housing to the residents and allow Diorigo, California to improve its long-term workforce stability. So if we can hit to the next slide. This project is modeled after a number of successful projects that have come before it. So really, we can thank Rick Antle in large part for his contributions. He left us untimely, but I would say this is a great part of his legacy. He entrusted us with the Tanamir and Antle Spreckles Crossing project in the city of, in the town of Spreckles, which consisted of 100 units and was the first project of this type. And since then, we've completed a few more projects, Casa Baranda in the Baranda, County of Monterey, one in the city of Greenfield, which is ongoing multi-phase project, and Harvest Moon just outside the city of Salinas, also in the County of Monterey. We have 2 two projects currently being proposed. So this one and then one for Bengard Ranch just outside the city of Salinas, again in the county of Monterey, and one under construction in Pajaro. So next, I'd like to show you a little video to give you an idea of what these facilities look like if you hadn't had the opportunity to tour in person yet. So we can hit that video and I will narrate a little bit as we go to point some things out. Oh. Let's see. Uh-oh, that's very sad. Oh, okay. Well, I will send that to staff and they will show you a video. Also talk a little bit about a project website that we've launched specific to this project. The video is posted there, so we can show you that. I might just call out some details in the video that I was hoping to show you. These are 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartments. These are apartment style living units. So you can expect that they have, architecture that looks most like an apartment building, and a site that has all of the amenities that you would normally find in an apartment building. They have laundry rooms, manager units, recreation facilities, both indoor and outdoor, and then of course ample parking and some outside seating areas as well. All right. So I'm going to hit some high level site operations things. These are kind of our FAQs that we hear a lot with these projects. Who pays for it? So Diorigo, California will be paying for it. It's a privately funded project and will be privately operated. And the folks that will live there are agricultural workers, so adult people. And the facility will be managed by an on-site manager and Diorigo, California. And that on-site manager is really, really crucial to the operation of this site on an ongoing basis. So they ensure that everything is running well, that it's a friendly and safe living environment for the residents, that the security cameras are monitored and facility rules are followed. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this site is projected to be occupied on a seasonal basis, spring, summer, and fall season. So the harvesting seasons here in the Salinas Valley, and then in the wintertime vacated. And that allows for appropriate maintenance, cleaning, upkeep to make sure that this is a nice facility on an ongoing basis. Probably the biggest question we get, at least from the public, is how does the parking work and what's the traffic? And to those of you who hear housing projects a lot, I'm sure that's no surprise. So we park these, over park these to ensure that we're having no spill out onto the surrounding communities. So like I said, we have about 2.7 stalls per living unit in terms of parking. And we find that at full capacity in the summertime and peak season, usually these facilities don't get more than 75% full with cars. So we have enough capacity to handle on-site parking. Additionally, that works out because there's an employer provided busing system to get folks to and from work. So these residents are much less dependent on cars than your average person might be because they already have that convenient and free transportation to their workplace. So they often rely on traveling on foot, or maybe on bicycle or public transit more than the average person. All right, next slide. So just some next steps for you. Like I said, we're very, very early on in this process. You're one of our first stops here. And the next stop will be community information and feedback sessions. So very shortly, there will be invitations hitting the mailboxes of any property within 1,000 feet of this site, inviting them to attend one or all of these information sessions or to visit the website that's specific to this project. So those sessions start at the end of this month and continue through the month of October, and the website will remain up through the duration of approvals of this project. So at those sessions, we really hope to hear from the community in terms of questions, thoughts, suggested improvements, and take all that and package it up into our formal application to the planning that'll be forthcoming in the next number of months. And if folks don't want to attend in person or can't attend in person for some reason, they're welcome to get in touch with us via the website as well. We find that makes it nice and accessible for working folks who might not otherwise have the time or ability to attend in person. And we'll also meet with some key community partners. We'll meet with environmentalist groups as well as folks who are involved in the housing and economic development world to talk through our project with them and again, gather suggested improvements. So we'll be processing this through the County of Monterey. The initial submittal, which is called a design review committee submittal, has been made. We actually have our meeting tomorrow with the County of Monterey. That will give us initial reactions from county staff, folks like Public Works, planning, fire, police, all of those folks give us their initial thoughts on our draft site plan. And we will, of course, be working in close coordination with the city, most especially probably Public Works. So looking forward to that, Patrick. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you'd like to ask them, or happy to take a seat. You just let me know.
We'll start at the side, Ms. Orozco. Any comments or concerns?
Just a couple of comments. Do you currently have a design in mind for this project?
For the exteriors,
Interior
for the interiors, yes.
and the exterior as well?
Yes, and I'm
And,
kicking myself that video is not working because that would have explained it really thoroughly for you.
and also, will this just be for the H2A workers, or will they be made available for any of the other men who work for DeRigo who are seasonal workers as well?
So it's envisioned currently that this will be an H2A facility. At least phases 1 and 2, the need currently exists for that workforce in this project. Phase 3 is to be built in the future, and that's TBD on who the occupants
Right.
might be at that time.
So there's a lot of regulations and rules and under the H2A program. Who will actually be administering to ensure that these rules are being followed? Will that be someone on DeRigo staff, or will be a labor contractor, or who will actually oversee that?
That's a good question. So these sites are all inspected for H2A compliance before they're occupied. So depending on the geography, that could either be inspected by the County of Monterey or a state level inspector. I know near the Salinas area, it's inspected by the county. In the city of Greenfield, it's under the state's jurisdiction. So these sites are specifically designed to comply with those regulations and will be inspected to those regulations. And then on an ongoing basis, we can expect that the on-site manager would be helping with the day-to-day of those regulations.
I mean, there's a lot of questions, but I'll leave room for the others. But I also wanted to ask just one real quick, if these units will be, I know I've seen some projects, and I've seen some projects where the units have been converted or have been made to be able to easily convert to regular apartment units should the H2A program cease. Many years ago, we had the Bracero program, and we had the issues where, the barracks were built and then they had to be converted back to apartments for families to actually be able to move into. So I'd be interested to see some of the designs that are going to be offered.
Sure. So that's been contemplated. These look and feel like typical apartments. I would say the main difference is the bedrooms are oversized. There are some regulations that dictate how much bedroom space you need for each employee. So we size the bedrooms accordingly, and that makes them bigger than your average bedroom. But otherwise, yeah, you could move in your family tomorrow, no problem. The metering is a little bit different for the utilities because there is just, one entity paying a bill instead of individual households. But in terms of the form of the building, they're 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartments.
Thank you.
Mr. Funk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, I think Councilmember Orozco actually asked a few of the questions I was curious about as well. In respect to, you mentioned, they're 2-bedroom apartments. Are they can expected to be dual occupied bedrooms or single occupancy bedrooms? I guess per unit, we're looking at 2, 4 people, 6 people.
Sure. So each unit has 8 people.
Okay.
And there are 2 bedrooms in each unit. So that would be 4 individuals per bedroom.
Okay, 4 bedroom. Gotcha. And then I think I missed on timeline. So what was your, what's the expected timeline that the goal that we're trying to hit?
Sure. So the goal occupancy for phase 1 is the harvesting season of 2025, phase 2, 2028, and then phase 3 to be determined based on need.
Sure. Thank you.
Ms. Silva?
I have a few concerns. You said that this project is in the county jurisdiction. But your expectation, I'm assuming, would be to connect to the city water and sewer system. And have you already approached our city staff to get clearance to make sure that we have the capacity
So we did meet with city staff already, and we'll continue to work with them to firm up capacity. Like I said, we're very, very early in our planning stages, but one of the things we typically do as courts of business is our projected loads on all the utilities, sewer, water, PG&E, and we would be communicating those, yes, with staff to ensure that there's proper capacity.
My other concern is traffic. At that location, our road narrows from about a 4-lane down to a 2-lane. My hope was that the Pembroke development is scheduled to go in just north of what your proposed location is. And my expectation is to have that road built out. Is Diorigo prepared to help with the expense of building that road out?
So we haven't discussed to what degree, but I can speak definitely in generalities that we do expect to participate in the frontage improvements along the immediate portion of Fano that's impacted by the project. So you'll notice in front of the Housing Authority property, there's a proper sidewalk network and all those things. And we would expect to connect into that network in front of our project. So I would say yes, and we will discuss with staff, to what specifications and degrees required for the project.
And then knowing that the Pembroke Development Company has been with the city for over 20 years in proposing that housing development, that many of our residents here in Gonzales and within the valley have been expecting for quite a few years. This would be closely adjacent to that development, including the school that is proposed to be very close to that. I know that most of the employees that would be housed there are generally male, and I drive by the one on Davis Road quite a bit, and I see them walk. They have to walk. And what you said here is there's going to be 2.7 parking stalls per unit, which would make a person assume that those people would have their own vehicles. And I thought it was H2A was supposed to be more that the farm workers would be taken to their jobs by either vans or labor buses.
Yes, that's the case. They're taken to and from their jobs in their employer sponsored travel. So that's usually vans or buses. So that cuts down greatly on the quantity of cars. What we often see in practice is that a handful of people might car share. They might go in on a car purchase together. They may opt to use bicycles because, we're in small towns, close proximity to services. That's a workable mode of transportation for them. So we do see a low car to occupant ratio.
Has there been any outreach to the Pembroke Development Company?
We haven't.
Knowing that their development has been proposed for so many years in this vicinity, or was there another site that Diorigo could consider to put this housing so that it doesn't impact that development as well as the traffic, as well as our water and sewer?
Sure. So I'll try to hit those all in order the best I can. We always want to be respectful in the sequence of who we approach and when. So we thought it was important to come to you all first and foremost. We'd be happy to reach out to other groups in the community that you feel are important. I hear Pembroke Development, so I'll write that one down as someone to reach out to. And they are welcome to attend also the community information sessions that we'll have if they'd like to, but I'm happy to have a one-on-one with them as well to talk those things through. Let's see, you asked, is there another place this could go? Our job as Avila Construction is to execute our clients' goals, and they brought us this lot as the lot that they would like to work with. So this is the only one that I'm working with at this time for Diorigo. And then I'm sorry, you had a third question. If you could reiterate it, I'd be happy to answer.
I think it was just with regards to the impact to the traffic, the water and sewer that it's going to have on our city.
Gotcha. So as part of the permitting process in the County of Monterey, we will expect that we will undergo the California Environmental Quality Act review. So with that comes a lot of technical reports and studies, and traffic and utility impacts are in that. So as we work through this process, we will have a good idea of what those impacts are. I can tell you that the traffic impacts from these facilities is much, much less than an apartment complex of similar size. And that's because of the busing that's provided by the employers to and from work. So that literally takes hundreds of thousands of trips off of the roads that otherwise would have been there if people were taking themselves in cars. But that'll be studied as part of the permitting process with the county.
And my final concern or my question is, does this project require approval from LAFCO?
That is still being worked through. It's been a topic of discussion with Tavin and I. We actually spoke about it this morning. I don't have a firm answer quite yet. So what I can tell you is this property is in the sphere of influence for LAFCO already. If anything, it would be about connecting the utilities to the project because we are not within the city's limit. So we're working that through and we'll take the most expeditious legal path that we have. So if it comes to that we need to be in front of LAFCO, then we will be. And if we don't need to, then we won't be.
And I guess my final concern would be, so this project could go forward without the approval of the City Planning Commission or the City Council?
Depending on the outcome of the utility situation, yes, it would be heard at the Monterey County level in front of the Planning Commission and if appealed by either party, the Board of Supervisors.
Ms. Worthy?
Well, I won't belabor what Ms. Silva said, because I'm in total agreement with her and I have some additions. My additions are that our residents have been waiting for housing for a number of years. And for us to come in and say to them, oh, we're going to bring in H2A housing. I'm not opposed to H2A housing. I just know that currently we have many residents in our community that want housing. And those are the people that we represent in our community. I am very concerned about the water and the waste, you know, all of that is, and the only way that I could even see this coming to fruition is if the buses went out Associated Lane, which is not going toward Fifth Street, because again, we're dealing with traffic. And I know that these buses leave at different, you know, early in the morning and they come back at different times, but we also have schools that come in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We have children walking home from school when all those buses would be coming in. It's very narrow on Fano Road. So I personally don't think that this is a good location for this particular. And the fact that Ms. Silva just asked you if it doesn't have to be approved by our planning commission or our city council, and you said no, that also causes concern. I feel that our residents are the most important people in our community because that's who we represent. So those are my 2 cents. Thank you.
All right, I will make one comment, and this is from Mr. Tom Fano. He actually called me prior to this meeting. His comment, as you can imagine, was he's not for it at all, and he feels that, you know, it's going to take away from the value of his potential subdivision. Of course, the other thing he voiced was the concern of the school being in such close proximity. Personally, I've seen what's been built on Davis Road. I've seen the group of young men on a pretty continuous basis on the weekends, traveling back and forth, I'm sure doing their shopping. I had a father that did participate in the Bracero program, and he would tell me about places like chicken coops that he had to live in. So the fact that the DeVigo company is stepping up and building housing, I applaud you. Is it the best location? I'm sure you'd get a wide variety of thoughts on this board, but it's needed. And if that's where they deem it's the most appropriate for them, then so be it. I mean, it's really nothing much that we as a council or a city can do to stop it. So, but again, like I said, my feeling is it's needed. Nobody wants it right next door to them. And I get it. I get it. It's a lot of young single men, and there's always that concern that what are they up to after they get out of work? The fact that you've added enough spaces there so that if in the future that is converted to residential housing, I think that speaks volumes. We already have such a problem along Fifth Street, along Alta, with those apartments being overcrowded. So good thoughts in your planning process. It's needed. I don't know what more I could say about it, but thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much. And like I said, sorry that video didn't work. I will get that a link to staff so that you all can watch that offline. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I can just
Go ahead.
add one more comment. Throughout my career in working for city government, I've administered many first-time homebuyer programs. And I've interviewed many families who were in dire need of housing, as Lorraine mentioned, and so did Liz. And many of those families who are looking for housing actually work for many of our ag companies like Dorigo and TNA. So it's really heartbreaking. As Lorraine said, we have many families who are looking for housing and even affordable rental housing to not be able to have it in our city yet. So sad.
It is, but I mean,
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
they've
it's on
had
our-
D.R.
yeah.
Horton here, but they walked off. So,
Yeah.
And Mr. Mayor,
Huh?
I want to be clear, I'm not opposed to this. I just don't think this is the right location. And I do think that our residents are more important at this time. That's, I look at people coming into our communities and they don't know our communities like we do. And we're here to protect our community. That's all. I'm not opposed to putting H2A housing in Gonzales. I just don't think that's the right location. So that I just want to clarify. Thank you.
All righty, we'll go ahead and move on to public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on an item not on the agenda may do so. You're allowed 3 minutes to speak on any item on the agenda. The council will take no action and will not make any comments. So anyone from the public wishing to make a comment on something not on the agenda may do so at this time.
Can I make a public comment on what was mentioned right now?
You should. It's on the
It's
presentation.
on the
On the
presentation,
presentation.
but it's not.
She should be allowed to make a comment on the presentation. Every item that's on the agenda is subject to some.
Public comments.
some public
Okay.
comment.
I thought as a presentation, that was normally not the case.
We could have taken public comment at the end of that presentation, but yeah, I mean, I think that it's legitimate during, even if she wants to just bring it up during the public comment, could do that, because if we're saying the presentation is not really an agenda item, then you should be able to comment on it, because you can do that during public comment on agendized items.
Fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Rosa Rodriguez, 307 Ayrshire Way. City council members, staff and community members and anybody that's here as a visitor. Today I'm dressed like this because my niece, who has Down syndrome, they celebrated today Mexican Independence Day, which was the 16th of September. And it ties into this because my grandparents were actually brought over as part of the Bracero program. A lot of discrimination at that time. They had to be fumigated, discriminated, thought that because they were coming from another country, they were going to bring some type of disease to this country. And I'm really saddened at some of the comments because these people are hardworking people. I am very proud, not proud, but blessed that I was brought here as a baby and that I grew up here, I'm very blessed that the United States of America gave our family the opportunity to give me an education to be here equally for everybody, not only one race. I'm dressed like this because today was, a celebration for my niece. But again, coming back, I see, I volunteered a lot with the Gonzales School District, the adult school, and I've seen these young men trying to, better themselves, learn the language. There's a lot of struggle. One of the things that I would advocate for is for them to be able to do their laundry. I used to live on the second story apartment of an apartment complex, and having to, carry those laundry baskets up and down, and you see them, riding their bikes with the laundry, going back and forth. These people struggle, and it's not, other people coming to our community. We have bad people in this community, so we can't be discriminating or saying, people are going to come here and they're bad people. We can't assume, we have perverts everywhere, not only because they're men, that means that they're going to do bad things. I can tell you that I've been in actually it's in the middle of Hollister and San Juan. My brother-in-law, he manages this type of program. It's the H2A program, and it's a federal non-immigrant visa program that allows agriculture employees to hire foreign workers for tough to fill seasonal jobs. And with that said, the rancher out there, they have a volleyball court, they have a place where there could, their dances. There's no alcohol there. My brother-in-law is the one in charge of making sure the water's running, the gas is running, making sure that, he reports anybody that drinks alcohol, that's, they go in taxis to go do to go buy their food. And I lived in a home where the Braceros used to live in Chular, out in the yachts. So these people are hardworking people, and I will not take any type of discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick question before we start. Are we opening up for the presentation or for the?
You can comment on either or if you want, your 3 minutes, say so.
Okay. First off, I just spent the last hour out in the streets with the Spartans, the football team. We're cleaning up Gonzales streets. What is up with that? The vegetation around this whole entire city is crazy. So who's cleaning it up? Who's responsible for taking care of that? You can't walk down any of these streets without seeing weeds about 1.5 feet, 2 foot tall. You got me, but I was out there. I don't see anybody else out there helping out. But going back to that presentation, I'm glad it's not on my side, because I fought you guys last time. You guys wanted to put a complex, 8-apartment complex with no parking. And you said, oh, they can park on the streets. There is no street parking. There's a lot that needs to be done. Our infrastructure is gone. If any of you guys been down Alta Street going towards those states, that road is shot. Your cars are rattling to pieces and nothing's being done. Yet we brought in businesses to use that route, and we're not fixing that up. That's not fair to us residents that you guys put the businesses there. There's got to be accountability, and then I wasn't happy when they said, hey, the city don't got no choice and we put it in. It's like, hey, wait a minute. I thought we're expanding, and I thought, that's already within city limits. But a lot of that needs to be really looked at. And those roads do need to be expanded before anything ever comes in. Even before we even put those new homes. I fought for years on that bridge. And nothing was done. What are we, 8 years? And that bridge is still the same? We still got the same problems? Ideas went passing through by and nothing's done? So we can't even look at expanding that way until that bridge is taken care of. Even on top of that, the other two that we're expanding towards, there's still 2 lanes. And they're not your standard 2 lanes either. They're your narrow lanes. So fix the infrastructure before we start bringing anything in.
April Martinez. I just want to say that the Gonzales football team is doing great. This is my son, Henry Martinez III. And he was out there pulling weeds, and I just gotta say, this city needs to work on the alleys, on just helping out. Just like this city's like full of weeds and garbage, and what is the city doing about it? Nothing. I just see people just walking by, not picking up stuff. As a community, shouldn't we be helping each other make our community look good? Just not the football players or any other teams. We're a community. We should all be doing it together to make our community and town look good. And the fire chief, the police department, the city is doing a good job. And you want to say something about it? Okay, thank you.
Pete Maturino, 537 Del Monte Drive. This is regarding the project. I agree in saying that if it was needed, because there's a lot of homeless farm workers wanting to work at Dorrigo or any other ag company. But currently, Dorrigo is working. They have over 1,500 farm workers that are represented by a labor organization The truck drivers at Rigo represented by a labor organization. Then we represent all the 200 people that are in the Rigo facility there in Spreckles. I would be thinking about, is it really needed? I mean, she's talking about 2025. And one of the things that these ag employers have to figure out is, can we prove to the EDD and everybody else that it's too hard for us to find the labor we need to harvest our crops? And right now they're harvesting their crops. And what I'm afraid of is that what's going to happen is labor contractors are going to be used instead of direct hire. I have a whole different worry, a problem that all of a sudden these individuals will take jobs. It's about jobs and people that are not going to be able to find jobs and end up in unemployment and things like that. But if they're going to be here, yeah, you know what? They need somewhere to stay and all that. And you're absolutely right on Davis. You said you walk over there or pass by there. Liz says that she passes by there. And you see all these guys walking around. They live in all the hotels. I have an office on North Main. And right there in the hotel right next to me, there's 150 of them. But one of the things you have to remember, and DeRigo and other employers, understand that when you're going to transport farm workers or workers with a bus, as soon as they walk onto the bus and the bus takes off, they're on the clock. That's the law. And so that's why you see so many cars out there in the fields these days and stuff, is because they take their own cars instead of the buses because they don't have to. In the old days, people were required to take the buses because they wouldn't get paid until they get off the bus and start actually cutting something. It has changed quite a bit. So I would look at all these things and be concerned about things, and especially that if it's in the right area or not. And I agree it's not. And then what I'm hearing is it might not even your decision to make. It might be just a county decision, and whether it's it's going to be requiring to be part of LAFCO or not, we don't know. But there's some concerns, and if I was you, I'd really think about this. Thanks. Thank you.
Roman Barba, 123 2nd Street. Well, my grandfather was a farm labor contractor. We owned the Rancho Rincon camp, and we also had the couple in Soledad at the time. So growing up at the camp, I saw a lot of things, especially when I was a kid. You saw a lot of them drinking. You saw fights there, pulling up. See them pulling out knives. You see murders there. So that's what happened at the camps, right? So at the camps we had the showers for them. We had the laundry rooms for them. So we had all the facilities. We had the kitchen for them. But I just remember there was a lot of them had medical issues. Some of them would bite their tongue or swallow their tongues. You had to put a spoon in their mouth so they won't swallow. But that I see over there by where Kmart used to be, you see them all, and you see them all walking in gangs. If they're going shopping, there's 20 or 30 of them walking. So I agree. I think where they want to put it, it's in the wrong city. It's too close to a school, and especially, and you see it here in downtown. You see them out here, especially in downtown. I ride my bike all the time. You go right there and you find the beer bottles laying all over the place. And guess who's out there drinking? It is the farm workers. They're sitting out there drinking. I was out there, I think Sunday morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, going through there, and you see the beer bottles laying all over the alleys or over here stuck in the flower pots and stuff like that. So I know the city doesn't have no say in it, but it's the wrong location. I agree with everybody else. It's in the wrong location. So, and also too, I wanted to talk about the weed issues. We got coming into Gonzales, and you have welcome sign to Gonzales, but you see by the railroad tracks all the way down, actually by Rincon Camp, where our old labor camp's at, Corridor Road, all the weeds, and they're this high. That's either county's property, but you go to Solid. I just went to a funeral in Solid yesterday. And their signs about the same as ours. You got a section, you come into Solid, and it's nice and clean out there. I mean, there's not a single weed out there. So I wonder if the county's out there cleaning their areas up over there, and they're just ignoring Gonzalez. Just try to, you see it coming in Gonzalez, they're this high. And then the housing with the foot over here down the street, 3rd Street. I'm the one who called the city about that house where the weeds are so high, but it's all the houses all the way down. I mean, the weeds are this high, walking right next to the sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Is it time for my shenanigans again? Hi, chief. Okay, real quick, like for her, they do have cars, but they don't use them for work. They use them for the weekend travels, weekend go here or there. I go to Denny's every week to the one by the airport, and they rent that hotel, the one across the street from Denny's, Jack in the Box, and there's already 20 cars on the road in front of Denny's, because they can get licenses. Thanks to this government we have, you can get a special license to drive a car if you're not from here. Okay, back to what I was gonna say. Few years ago, what was it, 10 years ago or so, maybe 8, we lost a good person in this community. Her name was Nomi. She was the secretary for the police department. I went to Sunday school with her. Her dad taught me, her mom taught me in Sunday school. We were taught to fear for our soul. We are told not to lie. If we want to see our loved ones, we have to live by a code. Be nice, generous, helpful, and not to lie. Okay? Just this weekend, well, last week, I buried my uncle, who was a same church member of Nomi and myself. We filled the congregation hall with family in the apostolic church. We all God-fearing people. And to be told in court by police department or CPS that our bloodline is dangerous, unfit to raise families, is an assault to our character, demeanor to our family. How can you call a whole church full of my relatives dangerous? I told them I have court papers from CPS that someone from the city or someone from CPS said that we're dangerous, unreliable, and stuff like that. I told them, get together, get your lawyer, and come and sue them that they ruined our family name. From Texas to Wyoming to Idaho, Texas. Not just the immediate family we have. We haven't talked to what's on my dad's side of the family. I'm going to tell them that we are bad. And it was accepted by the retiring DA, Dan Flippo, accepted that in court, submitted that in court. And it became court record that our whole bloodline didn't just say me, my son, my mom and sister, said bloodline. That is assault on our characters.
Anyone else? I don't see anybody. Okay, anyone on Zoom?
No comments.
Any comments via email? Mary?
No comments via email.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda, but I want to take a moment just to make 2 notes. First of all, Ms. Orozco will be leaving our meeting at 7:30. She has a prior commitment that she has to get to, so don't feel you're being disrespected if you're in the middle of a staff report. It's not you. She's got other commitments, okay? Secondly, unfortunately, my vision's waned. That's why I wasn't here at the last council meeting. And so Mr. Funk will read the item, so it's clearly read into the records. Then I'll proceed with the rest of the, beyond the staff meeting, I'll take care of the open discussion and the council discussion. So thank you very much, Mr. Funk, and I appreciate that very much. So moving on to the consent agenda. If everyone's had an opportunity to review that, I'll either entertain a motion for approval, or if does anybody want to pull anything from the consent agenda? That's open to the public as well. Council, anyone wishing to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to pull item number 5 on the warrants for clarification on
Okay.
2 items.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Nothing from the public? Okay, well, is that on the? 14, okay. Do you have questions about that? Is that what you have, Ms. Rodriguez?
Actually, I have a question about it.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and begin with Ms. Rodriguez, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's
with
fine.
you. Okay, Ms. Rodriguez, step up to the podium and ask your questions, please.
Rosa Rodriguez, 307 Ayrshire Way, here in Gonzalez for the record. The question that I have about, I think, the name of the landscaping company is Smith. I'm not completely sure of the whole name. I didn't get an agenda. They run out. I just looked at it on my phone. But I mean, they're doing a good job. And, Mr. Patrick Dobbins has been really nice to go over a lot of the information, and so has, Ms. Hill, and so has, Ms. Orozco, and Mr. Funk has gone down there regarding Mayor Park. Because that's where I seen them do some of the landscaping. The question that I have is, recently, I mean, I know that the city has been diligent in trying to mitigate the dog waste out there, people, walking their dogs and all the dog waste out there. I understand Public Works, my husband, he's a maintenance worker, and what he does, he maintenance, like if a water leaks or, something happens. But as far as the dog waste, I was wondering if that's going to be included in the contract for the landscaping company as a groundskeeper. Because I mean, it should. That's what my husband used to do. He was a groundskeeper, and it was part of his landscaping work in his previous job. Because the Public Works says that that's not their how could I say it, kind of like their duties or what they're supposed to do, because of course they have like 1,000 things to do, then I believe it should be included in the contract. Other thing is also that I spoke with some of the employees, and they said that there's some of the work that is not included in their contract as far as pruning some of the hedges. When I walk around there, some of the hedges are really big and should be cut down or trimmed down. And the reason for that is that there's a lot of, sometimes there's some young adults that are doing stuff that they're not supposed to. And when I'm walking around at night, I can't see. And so as a community, we are also responsible, like they said, as a community, we should make sure everything is kept clean, everything is not graffitied, everything is not broken or, vandalized or whatnot. And also the fence around Mayor Park should be replaced, especially because the kids actually stop there to get the bus, and some of those wires are, protruding out. And then we have, we already talked about the other things, but as far as the landscaping is concerned, I'm happy that at least $20,000 is being designated for the field. But again, we also need to include, the hedges and all that, because it seems that some people are divided the work. I mean, I understand they know how to divide their own work, but we also need to include in the contract the hedges and all that, because there's a lot of things that are overgrown and there's a lot of things that are dying. And so, I mean, I shouldn't be walking around and be telling them, hey, can you cut here? Can you cut there? Can you fix there? There's a lot of people that walk at night, and we want to promote, culture of health, prize for Gonzalez. We all want to walk, we all want to do exercise. I dance my heart out and I want to walk my heart out. So let's, keep it clean. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on, Ms. Silva.
Yes, so on page 21 and 22. The first one on page 21 is warrant number 49113 for $174,819.98 for trash services in June to Tri-Cities. And on the following page, the services for July are about a third of that, at $61,388.85. Can we have?
Yeah, can I address
Do
that?
we have the community pickup in June? Is that?
No, the first one, the 174,000 It's multiple invoices for month of April, May, and June. And then the other one you referred to is just for July.
That explains. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of consent.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, moving on to the next item. Mr. Funk, would you be so kind to read that title?
Yeah,
We
Mr.
have
Mayor.
it clearly stated in the record.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Item number 15, consider approval of resolution number 2023-61, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Gonzales authorizing the execution of the memorandum of understanding between the City of Gonzales and the International Association of Firefighters, Local 5388, for the period covering January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2024.
Staff report, I'm imagining that's Mike.
Great. Good evening,
Howard.
Mayor and council members. It is a pleasure to be before you to present this item this evening. You have the staff report that I prepared, but I want to go through some of the highlights for you this evening. In late 2022, the city council and the city staff was notified by the employees of the fire department of their intent to organize with local 5388. We followed proper procedures and some dialogue happened between the two organizations and we set some meeting dates. Our first meeting was on February 17th, 2023. Those continued during a 7-month period through September 8th of 2023, where we reached a tentative agreement. Mr. Tony Spitaleri was the lead negotiator for the union. He is also online on Zoom if there are any questions from the council for him as well. I want to thank Mr. Spitaleri. It was a pleasure to work with him. The negotiations, as you know, can be contentious at times. The union was very cordial throughout the entire period. We had some very challenging topics to discuss, and the representation from the union as well as those in attendance were very cordial and professional throughout the entire negotiations. I do want to back up a little bit. So during negotiations, representing the city was myself and Celia Ferme, who was keeping the notes for the negotiations. And on the union side, Mr. Tony Spitaleri was their lead negotiator. And at times we had at least at one point throughout the negotiations, every single firefighter sat at the table, including our two new firefighters. So I want to acknowledge them and their enthusiasm in wanting to participate in the process. And I think it was good for everybody. During the process, as you can imagine, we were constructing a brand new agreement for the city. So every piece of language was being negotiated. We had a total of 46 proposals on the table. And if I actually really broke it down, because our rules that we established at the beginning was we only had the first 5 meetings to put proposals on the table. After that, no new proposal could be introduced. So what happened on the last meeting was we would get proposals that really were like 10 proposals. But, you know, we worked through all of those. So actually that number was a little bit larger. Of the 46, 41 were from the union and 5 were from the city. Every single one of them was, we reached either a tentative agreement or it was withdrawn. Highlights, back to our meetings, you know, we had a 7-month period that we met. We had a total of 15 meetings where we met. Some key items of the MOU is that the MOU is for a 2-year period. It will conclude in through January of 2024. The MOU is retroactive as to the start date, but the provisions that have been negotiated with and we have a tentative agreement on will be implemented the first pay period following the council's approval of the agenda tonight. Significant things is that the fire department their work week or the way they get paid will change from a regular 40-hour employee to a 56-hour work week, which is normal and customary for fire departments. So that is something that we have agreed to. Vacation and sick leave accruals have been adjusted to account for the 56-hour work week as opposed to the 40-hour work week. We have implemented caps on vacation accruals as well as comp time accruals so that they're not endless caps, and it encourages our employees to take vacation and reduces liability to the city. We are also introducing a certification pay for the firefighters. This would be, I would say this is similar to the post certifications that we have for our police officers, where they, we compensate them if they go and get post intermediate or post advanced. For our firefighters that elect to go and get a firefighter 2 certification or a company officer certification, they will receive an extra 3.5% of compensation for taking initiative to receive those additional certifications. The COLA, the wages for this fiscal year are 3.75. That was already given to the employees as a part of the negotiated, or back in the time when we were following the POA contract. So on January, so that was already given to them. That's not an increased cost. And in January of 2024, they will receive a 4% increase in wages, which represents 0.25% more than what we had already planned. That we were already programmed to do 3.75. And I've already mentioned that the MOU will take effect the first pay period following adoption this evening. The union has held a vote, and the contract, the tentative agreement was ratified by the membership on September 9th, the day following the tentative agreement that we reached at the table. And so tonight, staff is recommending to council to ratify the agreement on behalf of Local 5388. And again, I just want to thank Mr. Spitaleri and all of the firefighters for their assistance. And I also want to thank Chief Musio, who was available during any caucus that I had. I could reach him on a cell phone and we could talk about things. And even when he was out on his days off, he would answer my call and say, hey, I need to review these operational things with you and make sure that we're getting them right. And he was always available. So I want to thank Chief Musio as well. And with that, we're recommending approval.
Questions from staff before I open it up to the public? Then I'll go ahead and open this item up to the public. And from anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item may do so at this time.
Henry Martinez, 112, not 114. When I was a lad in 1974, I was standing in the corner of Safeway, Alisal, and Sanborn, picketing with my mom. Ever since then, I've been a strong union person and been upset with some unions keeping people they should get rid of. But this is a great idea. We should support these guys because one of these days you're gonna want them to come to your house, and guess what? They're not gonna be happy with their pay. We want them happy, we want them great. They're doing a great job. Unlike the other department, I can't say a lot of praises to them. And the other thing you might want to do, you might want to unionize your staff and the front office. My recollections is they're not union, working in front of the police station, in front of the city hall, collecting our water bills. So you might want to unionize them too. You want to be, we want to be a happy community. We want our happy workers. And, like I said, I hope you guys do support them. They do a great job. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Rosa Rodriguez, 307 Ayrshire Way. As I've always supported, I've always been a strong supporter of our fire department, as I have of our police department. You know, that's why I volunteered. You know, when Chief Cudio was here, and I've also volunteered in other areas. And I support the fire department 100%. You know, what happened with the 4th of July fire, you know, it kind of gives us a wake-up call that, yes, you know, definitely we need them. We need them, and kudos that they're going to be paid if they take the initiative to take more training. That's what my husband's job, they pay him an incentive to take the trainings. And guess who gave the trainings? I gave him the trainings because nobody was there to give him the trainings. So about bias and about shooter and everything else, you know, I gave him the trainings. But in regards to that, I think it's wonderful that they're going to be taking the initiative and they're going to have that bonus money to get the proper training, because in the end, the community is going to benefit from that. You know, I've had the fire department come over to my home because guess what? They're the first ones there before the ambulance, and sometimes before the police department, because by the time, you know, the call goes through the chain of command of how it needs to go, they're the first ones there, and they're the paramedics that are actually seeing me. I have back issues, and I have autoimmune disorder, and I have diabetes, and my sister, my poor sister, I'm sure they know my sister, you know, she lives out on Freedom Way, and she has 1,001 conditions. And I'm very blessed that, you know, Chief Jason Musio, you know, they do a wonderful job, because guess what? My sister still lives and she has like almost 1,000 conditions, and they're always out there. So yes, I am so happy. And I just want to make sure that they get paid accordingly, because when my husband was changed to being paid those amount of weeks, guess what? He actually got short a week or two when he worked overtime instead of being paid hourly, because something about a week or something like that. I did the calculations, and it was actually he was getting paid less, being paid by those amount of weeks instead of by the hour with the overtime and everything else. And I made all the calculations. I'm like, wait a minute, we want to make sure that, you know, they're paid accordingly, and we don't shortchange them at all. And in regards to, you know, what happened with the fire, we're making it harder for them, because we don't have the reverse calls for the emergencies for the neighbors, you know, to evacuate. You know, we need that. We have the general plan, and we talk about it, and we say we're going to do things, but we don't do them. We don't have, I know that we need money for that. And that's what, you know, the mayor's here, the accountant, and everybody else, and you guys have to approve it. The reverse calls, kind of like what the school does, and make calls out. I mean, Mr. Avila does a wonderful job, and Mr. Scott Funk knows, because we work for House of Credit Services. We're a call center, and, you know, we know how that works, and we need that in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
All right, Henry Martinez Jr., 116 10th Street. I am a complete supporter of Jason and everything that he's done. You know, I stand with him in any decision that he makes. And if he says it's good, let's do it. But we had an incident the other day. You know, we had an open wound situation where I had a bandage up. Your firemen showed up right after. Instead of taking the lead, they played the back support. And they were asking me, what do I need? And, you know, what do you need? So I continued doing what I was doing. And I'm going to say, you know, they did good. You know, play the support sometimes, but sometimes lead as well. But I'm going to say the training that they got, it's good. So let's treat them better. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like that's it.
That's it?
Yep.
All righty. Marisol, who do we have? Anyone on Zoom?
No comment.
Okay. Mary, anyone via email?
No comments via email.
Okay, we'll bring you back to council discussion or council action.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion. We adopt resolution number 2023-61.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, the next item, I believe I can kind of memorize that one. And that's an update on the water and sewage rate study. Mr. Dobbins?
Yep. Mayor Rios, council members. This is an update on the water sewer rate studies. The initial presentation was at your August 7th meeting. I want to point out that our rate consultant of Lahovovich and Sang, it's Allison Lahovovich and Sophia Mills, the project analysts, are in the audience to support this presentation. Allison will be stepping through a slide deck in a minute. And as mentioned in the staff report, the city's water and sewer enterprise funds support or cover the costs of operating and maintaining the water and wastewater systems, completely separate from the general fund. Since 1990, the water and sewer rates have been adjusted each year by the Consumer Price Index. And as we pursue our state revolving fund loan for our industrial wastewater project to expand the wastewater capacity for industrial and residential development, we need to do this. Well, we need to complete this rate study and get in compliance with Proposition 218. And specifically, it requires that public agencies adopt and go through a rate study every 5 years, update your capital improvement projects. And, project our utility costs, our debt payments, and expected revenues. And a little more background on our sewer system, because that has what the most significant needs is. We've been planning to expand our wastewater capacity for a number of years before my tenure here at the city, which has actually been a little more than 8 years. And what we landed on is constructing an industrial wastewater system to expand it. And then we'll be working on the existing domestic wastewater treatment plant and providing the capacity for the industrial businesses in the business park to expand and the residential projects that have been proposed for quite some time. And the basic, one of the reasons that we backed into the industrial wastewater system is, the existing plant was not designed to take this egg wash water that's more than 2/3 of the flow. The sanitizers and cleansers that come down the pipe from the industrial businesses basically disrupt the biological process at a very simple pond system. The other item before us is we've been operating under a wastewater permit from the regional board for our existing plants since 2006. And about 6 months ago, we got a new permit, and the existing plant, even with moving the industrial flows, we need a new biological process to treat flows to meet that permit. And that's all about removing the nitrates. I think, let's see, what else? The rate consultant was selected at a council meeting in November. They've spent the last 9 months grinding through our rate information, number of customers that we have, the flows, our billing data, and things of that nature. And with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Allison, and she's going to step through the slide deck.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Good evening. So as Patrick introduced me, we have an update on the water and sewer rate study. The water tables are almost exactly the same. I've added some updates about drought rates, optional drought rates, but otherwise the water rates that you're seeing here are the same as the August meeting. We do have some updates on the sewer rates. They are slightly lower than that August presentation. I can give you some updates about why that is and the rate impacts. Next slide, please. So the rate study process is a Proposition 218 process, which says that we have to establish the cost of providing service and fairly recover costs from customers. The city has traditionally done inflationary cost increases. You last did one in July. But because you have major capital improvement needs coming up, there's a need to do a big rate refresh. So water and sewer funds are enterprise funds. They're independent business units of the city, and they're intended to be self-supported by rates. So they're not, drawing funds from other city sources. This rate study covers a 5-year period. That is the legislative time period allowed by Proposition 218. So we're proposing a series of 5 rate increases going into effect January 1st of each year. Next slide, please. So a few updates for your rate structure. You currently have a tiered rate structure. So at higher levels of use, there's a higher rate per 100 cubic feet of water use. We're proposing to eliminate that and go to a single, it's called a uniform rate, same rate of per unit of water used for all customer classes. And that's easier to justify with the new legal requirements. Procedurally, we conducted the rate study that establishes the cost of service and basis for the rates. The next step is if you all approve the rate study tonight, we will coordinate the printing and mailing of notices of the proposed rate change to all tenants. So utility bill account holders, billing account holders and property owners. Will mail them all a notice explaining the need for the rate change, that we're proposing to hold a public hearing, and that they have the right to protest the rates if they desire. So if more than 50% of the property owners submit protests, then the rates cannot be adopted. I say property owners, utility billing customers also have the right to submit a protest, but the 50% threshold is based on number of parcels, just to clarify that. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. So the water fund does have some existing reserves, which is great to see. So there's some funding for emergency expenses. You currently are generating positive net revenue. So as of this moment in time, the water fund is financially healthy. You're covering expenses, covering debt, putting some funding into capital improvements. But there is a need to increase rates over the next 5 years. So costs are not going to stay the same. We're seeing increases for operations, supplies, materials, all those items. So we need to keep up with inflation on that. And more of a driver of the rate increase is capital improvements. So we're looking at about a $7 million borrowing, so new debt to fund improvements like pipeline replacements, new tanks. So we expect new debt service costs of about $450,000 a year. So we have to make sure that your water utility can fund those debt service costs and maintain a strong credit rating. So to conduct those repairs and replacements and fund costs, we're recommending a 7% annual rate increase. So not every customer will get exactly the 7%. That's averaged over all ratepayers for the water utility. We are proposing some rate reconfiguration. So I mentioned the tiers collapsing down to a uniform tier. So it kind of depends on how much water you use, what your meter size is, different things like that. But overall, the amount of revenue we want to collect, it would be an increase of 7%. Next slide, please. So this was a new chart for this presentation. I was hoping to better represent the financial picture. So the green line is revenues. So you can see increasing over time with that 7% increase in the proposed rates. The bars in the chart are expenses. So the blue bar operations, you also have debt currently. So we're paying off existing debt, but we also think you need to issue new debt to fund more projects. So that orange piece is getting larger. We have, like I said, some amount of debt is going to be paying off projects. And then we do expect some amount of funding from reserves too. So that's that big yellow piece in the middle is some amount is being funded through reserves. And it's a mix as a rate consultant trying to balance amount of new debt versus funding from cash, funding from reserves. And so we felt that this was the most optimal path. And then you can see by the end of the 5th year, we are fully covering costs and we have a little bit of positive net revenues just to keep you in good financial standing. So next slide, please. So this chart shows the existing water rate structure. I will say that you did an increase July 1st of 5.3%. So this should be slightly updated. So I do apologize for that. But the overall rate structure for your city is a series of fixed meter charges based on meter size, plus usage rates. So charge per 100 cubic feet. It's a mouthful. You do have a tiered rate structure currently. So residential and commercial customers pay a higher unit rate for higher levels of use. Although industrial customers who use the most water pay that lowest tier, it's equal to the lowest tier. So that's a little unusual. And then your meter fees, there's not a lot of difference between the largest meters and the smallest meters. And that's kind of out of alignment with industry best practices as well. So next slide. I think I hit on most of these points. We want to transition to a more fair rate structure, a rate structure that's more in line with current legal requirements and industry best practices. So we're proposing a uniform rate. I have added a series of drought rates, so we'll pull those up in a minute and I can explain how those would work. And then we are proposing funding of about 40,000 a year for a low income discount program. There are some legal requirements about not using rate revenues subject to Proposition 218 as the allocated funding source. So we wanted to be thoughtful and careful about what revenues we're assigning to that program. So we think the revenues would be about $40,000. And the city could use existing low income programs like the electric discount program as the kind of the indicator of who maybe should apply for the water program as well. And then, as I mentioned, the meter sizes and the charges for larger meters. We met with the industrial customers this afternoon. Those are the folks who are using those very large meters. The concept is that a large meter uses so much more capacity in your water system. There's a lot more cost to maintain those larger meters and the larger lines to serve them. And they should pay a fee proportional to the size of the meter and the maximum flow rate of their meter. And so we are showing higher percent increases for those larger meters. And then I have some charts explaining kind of how that's industry standard and puts you in line with other local communities, how they charge those fees. And what we're also proposing is that the two smallest meters, the 5/8 inch meter and the 1 inch meter, be combined into eventually they conjoin into the same rate. And the reason for that is the 1 inch meter is the new building standard. So all new development would have the 1 inch meter, and that's for like fire flow protection. So it kind of doesn't make sense to have a 5/8 inch and a 1 inch when, you know, that's the new standard and they're kind of being combined in the building code. So next slide, please. Okay, so this chart shows the proposed water meter fees over the next 5 years. The first year rate increase would go into effect January 1. So that doesn't represent the 7% increase. There's a little bit of reconfiguration. So if you have your calculator out and you say, why isn't this one 7% or that one 7%? That is because we're rescaling the fees. And you can see those larger meters are getting a very significant increase. But after this first year reconfiguration, the following years, it is the 7% to all customers. So next slide, please. These are the 1 inch water meter fees. We're proposing the 1 inch for this year remain the same. And the idea is eventually the 5/8 inch meter catches up and the fees are the same thereafter. But almost all these other comparable agencies charge a lot more for that 1 inch meter fee. Next slide, please. And I have a number of charts and it's the case through all of them. All these larger meter sizes, most other communities charge a lot more. Again, representing that huge amount of capacity that those customers take up in your system. So this is a 3 inch meter. A lot of agencies charge in the $200 or $300 range for that fee. Next slide. In the 4 inch meter, same story. A lot of agencies charge much, much more, multiples of what you're charging for those fees. So there's a need to better align those costs with industry's practices. Next slide. This is the final one, I think. 6 inch meters. And I know going from like $32 up to $400 is a huge, huge increase, but your fee is still on the low end of other utility providers in this area. Next slide. Okay, so then this slide is the volume rate. So we just talked about the fixed meter fees. This is the volume rate. So we are proposing to shift everybody from the tiered rate structure to a single uniform rate for all customers at all levels of use. And then on the bottom portion of the chart is drought rates. So all the water rate studies I'm doing across California, I always promote water drought rates for water cutbacks or water shortage scenarios. We hope you never ever have to use drought rates. We hope our water supply is strong, but if there is a mandated cutback, you have a series of rates already in place, already adopted through a public process, and you would have the option to then implement those rates. And the idea is that it would recover the costs lost by lower water sales. So under a drought, certain types of costs would decrease. So probably less electricity for like pumping, less chemicals. So I counted for some level of cost decreasing, but overall, the city still needs to meet its costs and be financially whole. So we're not punishing people for conserving. We're not, implementing penalties, unfair penalties. It really is just to recover your base level of cost. Next slide, please. So this is a sample bill for an average single family home. So this customer has a 5/8 inch meter and is using 12 units of water per month. And that person's bill is increasing a little over $2 per month. But you can see the current to proposed bill didn't even change in the ranking of comparable bills of similar agencies. Next slide, please. So we can switch over to sewer. Next slide. Okay, so sewer is a little more financially challenged. We have big costs coming up. So currently the sewer fund is covering its operating costs, funding some amount of capital improvements, but just the size and scope of the major reworking of your treatment stream, improvements to your collection system, shifting the load from the domestic plant over to a new industrial plant requires a big restructuring of the rates. So the city is pursuing a state revolving fund loan. And the benefit of that is it is a discounted loan program. So you get lower than market rate interest and you get very favorable financing terms. So even though we are proposing increases, this is a way that the city is saving its customers money. But in addition to that loan, which is proposed to add 1.25 million of debt service costs per year, you're also covering new inflationary cost increases, so materials and supplies, as well as some cash funded improvements, capital repairs and improvements. So we have a series of revenue increases. So 20%, 26.6. This is a bit lower than our prior presentation in early August. So what happened? We've had a lot of communication with the SRF loan officers, fine-tuning the costs. And so we were pleased to see that we could lower the rates a bit. So the first draft showed like 27% increases. So it is a bit lower. And the 5th year rate is about $5 less per month than the prior draft. But that is the 5th year rate. So over time, the ultimate impact. And really, it's to meet debt service, to meet the requirements of your SRF loan is the driver for the rate increase. So you have to show the loan officers that the city can meet its costs, but also have a little bit of financial cushion. So that's the driver for the rates. Next slide, please. So this chart is also that representational explanation of the cash flow. The blue line there is revenues. The bar portion of the chart is expenses. Currently you're covering operations and some rate funded projects, but really that red portion, the new debt, is that big driver. You can see the big increase in overall cost structure for the city's utility is driving the rates to increase. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the sewer rate structure. You have a fixed charge for residential, commercial, and industrial customers, and then a volume rate for non-residential, so commercial, industrial of $2.40 per 100 cubic foot, and then a daily attendance rate for schools. Next slide. So we're proposing to keep the rate structure the same, just update the underlying costs. So we're proposing a customer service fee, or the base fee should be the same for all customer classes. And what that means is the industrial fixed cost is actually going down, but they're recovering a lot more costs through their flow rate. And that's more fair because it's more based on how much they use in the sewer system. And then for residential customers, they are also paying their equivalent amount of discharge. It's just averaged into a fixed fee. So next slide, please. So this is the proposed rate structure. There's increases to the residential fixed fee. The commercial industrial fixed fee is decreasing. But they're recovering a lot more on the volume rate. So you can see the volume rate down at the bottom is increasing from $2.40 to $3.39. And then January 1st increases thereafter. And again, the ultimate goal is to cover that new debt to make the needed improvements to your treatment and collection streams. Okay, next slide. So even with a proposed increase of about $7 a month, you didn't change in the ranking compared to other local communities. You have a lot of comparable agencies charging around $60, $70. And so with the proposed increase, you're around $40. Next slide. So to wrap up, the total bill change using that typical water user plus the residential bill for sewer combined together is about a $10 proposed increase for that first year, that January 1st rate change. Next slide. So to wrap up, so tonight we have the presentation of the report. If you approve the report and approve the rates as included here, we'll print and mail the notice of public hearing at the end of the month. Then you have October, November is our Proposition 218 waiting period, and we're required to wait 45 days. And we propose to hold the public hearing in November. And then that provides ample time to implement that January 1st rate adjustment. And so the public hearing will be on the 20th, and we've submitted a draft notice to city staff of the public hearing information, and it will be in English and in Spanish and sent to both tenants, so utility bill holders, account payers, as well as the property owners. So both groups. And that's what I have tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Allison. So I just want to mention and reiterate that this afternoon we met with industrial dischargers, Taylor Farms, Braga Fresh, Constellation, and Man Packing, and gave them the same presentation. I had provided the council packet to them on Friday so they could see the water sewer rate study that's in the council packet. No real questions, but gave them the same, whatever, provided them with the update and this information. And then I think the other thing to add is Allison and Sophia had developed sample water sewer bills based on what average discharge from each of those. So, Braga got theirs, Taylor got theirs based on their average discharge. So we're trying to be as transparent or open. This is what's coming. This is why it's coming. And that concludes our presentation. But thanks, Allison.
Great. I'll go ahead and open this up to public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item may do so at this time.
Henry Martinez, 112 10th Street. We, the people on this side of town, our forefathers created this town. They paid for everything to be built here in this side of town. They even made their place upon bigger to equip growth. So why should we, the people on this side of town, be punished for some of the council members approving different projects and this and that, and now you're coming back and charging the people on this side, which our forefathers paid to start the city? Why do you always look at us when we paid for everything in the beginning and you guys built the city bigger? Not you, Mayor, but you guys built the city bigger. You guys expanded the city, you expanded the usage, and yet you still come to us again. Why? We paid our share. Our forefathers, my mom struggled to pay everything in this town. Did you think I like eating rice and beans for breakfast and dinner when I was a kid? That's what's going to happen now. You see all the food banks. They're giving away a lot of food because they can't afford to pay. PG&E just raised their rates. And we the landlords are not going to pay the increase. We're going to pass it on to our tenants. Our tenants are going to suffer because they can't afford our rent. And where are they going to get their meal from? They're gonna choose pay the rent or buy food. You guys gotta think, we paid our share. My mom suffered, my dad suffered to pay to build this city to what it is now. You guys are looking at it as a cash cow. We paid our share to build the facilities. Stop looking at us. All you're gonna do is create problems in this town. People are gonna go hungry over these increases. $10 is not much, but it is to a lot of these senior citizens here. It is a lot to my tenants who are struggling to pay the rents. And everything's expensive. I went to go do a little barbecue for my daughter. It was $100 for what, 4 pounds of meat and everything else I bought. You know, you guys got to think, we can't afford it. We're paying for a brand new school that's never going to be built. 2 bonds. And you're comparing apples and oranges. Salinas in here, we're totally different.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Anyone else? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, Roman Barba. Yeah, no one likes increases. I mean, you got everybody increasing everything. You got property taxes that just went up. We got the bonds, it just went up, like Mr. Martinez just, so we got hit. I think on one of my properties went up $800 just in one property. On those proposals there, those bonds. Also too, you cannot compare Gonzales to these other cities. I mean, we got nothing but a lot of farm workers here, right? And you should know, the city should know that a lot of them can't even pay the water bills, right? I'm sure you got a pile of them. You know, you go looking at places like Aromas, Monterey, you got those areas, you got people that have a lot more money. And Gonzales was at 8,000 people here, a little over 8,000 people. You can't compare us even to Soledad. I mean, Soledad's 26,000 people. You can't compare us even to Greenfield, King City, to any of these other towns. We're the smallest town. We're also the smallest school in all Monterey County. We got 700 students at the high school, 700 students. So you can't compare our little town here to cities. So some of these fees going up, this is something that would be, I could see them going up a little, but I think you're just asking for a little too much here. So I'll be totally against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish? Okay.
Rosa Rodriguez, 307 Ayrshire Way. I thank my mom for sending me to school because I learned a little bit here and there. And I thank, everybody that taught me a lot of things here coming to the meetings. And I hope that this feedback, is taken into account instead of just listening to the community and then just approving everything without, keeping in mind what we say. One of the things that I do want to say is I do not agree with flat rates, and let me tell you why. I believe we should keep the tiered rates. Thanks to the tiered rates, I was able to find out that we had a huge leak next to our fig tree. And I was like, wow, we have beautiful figs, but it was always wet out there. And we had a huge leak. Of course, common sense, your bill goes higher, you're gonna have a leak somewhere. But I found out that there's a flat cost. And then on top of that, if you go over certain units, you get billed a certain amount. If you go above that, you get billed another amount, kind of like saying, we're in a drought, wake up, don't waste all this water, do something about it. Well, I have neighbors that run water, just let the water run and run and run and run. And if we go to a flat rate, guess what? I mean, we're already in a drought. We're not going to have water. And not only that, we're complaining about, doing building new homes and everything. And we're complaining about infrastructure. Well, if we don't invest in what she was mentioning, something here about putting in, I'm not sure if I read some more in here about putting new pipes, and it says here, capital projects for pipeline replacements and a new tank. Well, if we don't do our infrastructure correctly before building all those homes, we're gonna have an issue with water. So $10 in order to have this fixed, I'd rather be drinking clean water and for my family too. And what I said about the dog waste, I'm sure when it rains, thanks to I don't know, my biology class or my chemistry class at Gonzalez High School, it rains, that poop is gonna end up in our, in our sewer system. It's gonna end up, that water is not 100% clean, and we're drinking some of that poop. So that's why I say, put it in the groundskeeping contract to clean up that poop, because I don't want to be drinking dog poop. And so I say, I'm one of those broke people. I can't afford my water bill, but guess what? I'll figure out a way to pay that $10 because I'd rather have something new and drink clean water. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, with my 29 seconds, in regards to the Jerigo project, really quick, I also want to say, I would rather have them connect to the city pipeline than have them have wells, because that's what they have out in Hollister, and that gets contaminated, and
Rosa,
we don't want
thank
our
you.
workers, getting sick.
Thank you, that's off topic.
Thank you. It includes with the water. It's part of the water. Believe me, it is. And I had 6 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I don't see one either. Marisol, do we have anybody via Zoom?
No comment.
Oh, it's Stella. I'm sorry, Stella. Mine's bad, sorry. Mary,
No comments via email.
thank you. We'll bring it back to council discussion.
And I believe on this one, Mr. Mayor, I believe we're approving the beginning of the state process, right there, the 218 process, right? So do we need an actual motion on this to?
Well, I wanted to make the comment that I actually totally agree with Mrs. Rodriguez's comment about the tier structure. I really think that we need to have that built in only to encourage conservation. I mean, you know this and I know this, and some folks have a big garden and they will use lots of water. Some folks don't even pay attention that the water in the toilet keeps going. I've had that a number of times where people don't say anything that the toilet's running and the water bill comes back and it's huge. And I think we need to at least keep that as a thought or a possibility, because I think when you tier it and people go way beyond what their normal use is, then hopefully that'll encourage water conservation. And I thought that was part of what our mandate is.
And the staff can probably confirm, Mr. Mayor, but I believe the flat fee is just the meter itself. We still have the tiered rate based on usage.
Right.
So we have the monthly meter fee and then
Right.
there's the usage fee. And the San Juan Capistrano that went to the state Supreme Court threw out tiered rates unless you can demonstrate there's a cost to providing that additional water, like an energy cost. Like if we had multiple waters, if we had more than one water zone. So Gonzalez has one pressure zone. If we had, like Soledad has, I believe, 2 pressure zones. Okay, if you have to pump the water and there's an electrical charge or other costs to do that, then that's okay. You can have a tiered charge, but we don't have that here. And that would go against the San Juan Capistrano decision by the state Supreme Court. So again, as you're saying, Councilmember Funk, there's the monthly meter fee and then there's the usage fee. So folks who.
The usage fee isn't tiered, is it?
We're proposing that it's not tiered. And so they would see additional use. Anybody who uses more water than their neighbor is going to see a higher water bill. I guess I'll also mention that with our large industrial customers, what we're doing is we're setting smart meters and they're able to view their water use on a regular basis. They could watch their water use on a daily basis, weekly basis, what have you. So as we move to more and more smart meters, what our other customers will be able to do that. That's available to our industrial facilities at this point in time. Does that make sense?
I thought all our meters were on, you basically run a wand by them. You don't even have to pick up the lid anymore.
But the ability for them to
actually see it online.
See it online is a step that we're making right now.
Oh, so residential can't do that.
That's correct.
Okay.
They cannot at this point in
Residential
time.
cannot see it online, only commercial. Okay, well, if we've already been told by the court that we can't tear it, then I guess we have no choice. All right, then on,
So-
you need a motion, is that correct, Michael?
I don't think, do we?
Yeah.
Or is it-
Motion to direct staff to accept the report and to direct staff to initiate the process, which is the mailing out of the ballot. That's all.
So you need a consensus from council, or do you need actual vote? Actual vote. So, Mr. Funk, do you want to make that motion?
I don't like fee increases, but yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion that we do initiate the, do we authorize staff to initiate the Prop 218 process?
I'll second.
Okay.
My apologies. Yes, that is include receiving the report and accepting the report. Yes.
Point of clarification,
Okay.
before we vote, there is a protest. Just want to make sure that people know that, because that is going to come up later.
Well-
I mean, it's in the report.
Well, and it's gonna be on the document they receive.
Right, I just want to make sure. that-
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Funk, would you please take the next one, sir?
Certainly. Item number 17, consider approval of resolution number 2023-60, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Gonzales authorizing execution of a master service agreement with Harris Associates to provide project and construction management services for the community center complex project for an initial fee of $500,000 for services through June 30th, 2024 under task order 1.
Staff report.
Mayor Rios, council members. So as stated in the staff report, as this community center project advances through design and into construction, several months ago, it crossed our mind that we should issue an RFP for the project management, construction management services to ensure that we had the best team that we could find to support staff's efforts to deliver the community center project. So in the spring, I began preparing a request for proposal and ended up issuing it on June 15th. And what's important about that date is I needed to get through the selection of the design build team, which happened at your June 5th meeting. And 10 days later, I issued the RFP for this contract. Held a pre-proposal meeting, and as stated in the staff report, the deadline to submit proposals was July 13th. We received 2 proposals, and it's important to point out that Swinnerton, our current consultant, did not submit. And it's my understanding it's because they did not have local staff to serve as the construction manager on this. They did present a resume to me during this process, and that individual did not have experience with community centers, teen centers, or libraries. So staff reviewed the 2 proposals, and both firms, oh, let me back up, I'm sorry. The 2 proposals were received from Harris and Associates and Asonio. Harris and Associates local office is in Salinas, headquartered in Concord, offices throughout California. Asonio based in Castroville. On July 25th, we interviewed both teams, Mike Howard, Don Wilcox, Public Works Director for the City of Soledad, and I participated in that on the interview selection team. And Harris came out unanimously as the higher ranked firm. And it's for several reasons. Their proposal, they put a lot of thought and care into their proposal, exactly what the services were going to be, the staffing that was going to be presented in their proposal. Long resumes in project building, project management, construction management on vertical construction. And then another thing that separated from Asonio is staff with grant consulting experience that'll help us continue to pursue grant applications for this project. So let's see, should you approve this contract, Swinnerton Services will be wrapped up by November 30th. Approval at tonight's meeting will allow for a nice overlap for Harris to get up to speed on this. And I want to mention that, so in our chambers tonight, we have Frank Lopez, who's the principal in charge with Harris and Associates. Luis Flores is the project manager. On Zoom, we have Matt Nethercutt, and he's the project executive. I believe that they'll want to address the city council. As a bit of an aside, but an important update on this project, let's see, about 10 days ago, we received the 50% design development submittal from WRNS, the architect on the design build team. That's right on schedule. I wanted to mention that we are on track, and again, sticking my neck out, fingers crossed, we will break ground end of April 2024. That's been the schedule for the last several months since we approved the contract with the design build team at your June meeting. And just on that same note, last Friday, WRNS, the project architect, city staff, and our contract building official of Four Leaf did a page turn on the 100-page 50% submittal provided. And just want to let you know we're keeping this project on schedule. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Frank. You're going to come up to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor Rios, council members, City Manager Gill. Very happy to be here tonight and to have gone through this process with Mr. Dobbins and the team to present our qualifications to support this improvement. This is a project that I've been following for a long time now. There's some history here within, not just with me, but with my family and being supportive of the city of Gonzales, having been a resident for a number of years here. It's nice to be able to come back and support an improvement of this size and of this magnitude that's going to have an impact within the community. I lived here for a long time, went to Gonzales High, graduated from there, graduated from Hartnell, went to San Diego State and came back. And so I'm very excited to be a part of this team and support this improvement. I will say that the exciting thing about this is that our local team is highly qualified to deliver this. So our team is predominantly local. I have Luis Flores here, who will be the construction manager on this project, lives in Hollister. One of our inspectors, lead inspectors, lives in Pacific Grove. So we have staff that is local and going to be very responsive to the city. So I want to thank you for that. If I can answer any questions, please.
Council, any questions?
No questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Oh,
Probably more for Patrick, not for you, Frank. So, okay, so auto construction, they're the ones that are going to construct the community center. I thought that WRNS were going to be the project managers for this.
WRNS is the project architect. And when we went down this path to deliver a community center project, and we selected design build, and I should say the council selected design build based on staff's recommendation, we went through an RFQ process and brought Swinnerton on board because this is a very, very large project and staff needs project management consultant help. And I went to revisit, do we have the best team to continue to work alongside city staff? So the point, Councilmember Silva, is we have the design build team of auto construction and WRNS. And then we have the city staff with a construction manager to work alongside us to make sure they're, we're staying on schedule. We're responding to their questions. What's happening in the field? Do we encounter any difficulties, any unforeseen? They're going to be our eyes and ears in the field. So that's what we've, done with Swinnerton. And an example of that is the tree removal contract of last fall, where with Swinnerton's help, we issued that for bid, worked through the bid phase, and ultimately selected Topes Tree Service to remove those trees. That was Swinnerton and city staff working together. So they'll continue to basically make sure that the design build team is delivering as they're supposed to. And for instance, if is there extra work that we want done, we need to negotiate that. If there's work that comes out, we need to negotiate that credit. That's something that Harrison Associates helps us with. There's also reporting. There's reporting regarding the grants that we have, and we need to be prepared for audits. And that's something that we turn to our project management consultant to help us with.
And if memory serves me correct, Swinnerton did not have anybody local. So for them to say that they didn't have any local people kind of took me by surprise. I appreciate Harrison Associates. I know Frank. I know his dad used to work for the city. But again, I was taken aback by, well, what was the reasoning? I guess my whole thing is when you start a job, you see it through to the end. And so I'm disappointed in Swinnerton not doing
Yes.
that.
If I can add to a little bit, hey, I'm here. There's been a change in staffing at Swinnerton as well. So where we had
Well,
Greg,
Can I speak to this just
you know,
because I'm kind of passionate about this? So there was this Swinnerton A team and it was, sorry, Carmen. There was what I call the Swinnerton A team, Greg Armandaris, Bob Kagiyama, both seasoned public works hands, did a terrific job. Anticipated every need, drafted some of my staff reports. Went out and found 2 grants. I believe we applied for 5 grants. We actually secured 2 grants, which I think is outstanding. A year ago, October, Greg retired and Bob was retired. So there was a reduction in staff at Swinnerton. And then we were basically said, well, here's your new staff. And it was John Baker, project executive, and Albert Wiggy, project manager. John Baker, very, very good, seasoned design build, project manager. The other gentleman, this was his first design build show. And I know the council has expressed some frustration. I wasn't going to go there, but I'm going to go there. I was frustrated. I was concerned about Swinnerton's ability to follow this through pretty much from last December. And I was basically wondering, like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Because this reflects on me, this reflects on city staff, the ability to deliver this project. So in spring, what I landed on is, okay, there's going to be an RFP. And then as you already heard, I had to wait to get through the selection of the design build team to then go down this path. I wasn't going to disrupt. And another important thing to say is we brought on Auto and WRNS. They're doing a terrific job. And now we're grinding through the design development phase, and it's still not the time, in my opinion, to swap out Swinnerton, but it's the time to bring the next team on board so that there's an overlap and get Harrison and Associates, should the council approve this contract, get them on board to then step into those project management shoes. We will be completing the design development phase at the end of October. As you heard, we got the 50% submittal. Thursday before last. That's when we're able to make changes. And one of the exciting meetings with the building official last week was, so where do the baby changing stations go in the bathrooms, for instance? And small detail, but we want these things. And what is the layout of this facility? Once the design criteria document is 100% and the city is satisfied, we go into construction documents. And the really important thing there is we want to no changes or minimal changes, because at that point, if it's an additional work, it's going to cost the city money. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, there's been that's the evolution of the Swinnerton efforts on this project.
I think it's just really important to note, though, that nothing has stalled. Everything has continued to stay on track. And so even though all that was happening, everything has continued and we're still on the timeline that we put in front of you.
Okay, and if it's approved, I hope they can see us through to the finish line.
All right, at this point, I'll go ahead and open it up to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this agenda item may do so at this time. When? Yeah, you're right. I know.
Rosa Rodriguez, 307 Ayrshire Way. Thank God I know how to read body language. But anyways, I'm going to the website Harrison Associates, and it says we build equitable, resilient, and sustainable communities. Since 1974, our clients have trusted us to provide end-to-end value, from sustainable and resilient planning solutions to innovative design and construction. See, 1974, I was born in 1973. So if they've been here long enough, I trust them. And just going to the website, doing my research while I'm sitting there, and I would rather have somebody local and somebody, that cares. and somebody that say, you know what, I could go to Palo Alto, I read through this, I scanned through this really quick, I'm a speed reader. So, you know, the city of Los Angeles, I see a lot of different places here. They could go anywhere else. They really don't need our business. They want to be here. We shouldn't be questioning them. We should be thanking them for wanting to help us out. So, and then to say that they went to Gonzalez High, what have we've been telling our youth commission, you know, our youth commissioners, go to school, go to the university, come back and do something for your community. Guess what? He's doing just that. So to be questioning instead of going through the website and speed reading like I am while I'm sitting there, you know, it's to me, it would be kind of like a slap in the face. And what are we teaching our youth commissioners? You know what? Go out there, but guess what? If you come back, we're going to be questioning you. We want to be a role model for them. And this gentleman is a role model. Why? Because he's coming back and helping his community. Why? Because he lives here, because he cares. I'm sure he probably has family here. And, you know, and that's what community is. Culture of health prize, community, have our own people come back and want to do something better for our community and be our role model for our youth. I mean, as simple as that. So, I mean, to me, that's in a nutshell. And I apologize. I don't mean to offend anybody, but please, 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 when these staff reports come up, please go to the website. It just takes a couple of seconds to kind of see what type of quality or what type of work they're doing or where they're from, or kind of look at like if I were them, I would be selling myself with whoever wrote this website. I would be reading this website and say, my resume, this is who I am. These are the projects that I've completed. And that's actually, you know, what people do when they go out to bid. Thank you.
You.
No.
Roman Barba. Yeah, community center, I guess, I don't know if you remember, I was going door to door, even at the post office, getting signatures for the community center when we were finding Chispa, remember? And I also got the news stations and the newspapers here. But and when he came along and there was another company that was here, we picked him. So because he was a graduate at Gonzalez High, he's a local. So we want locals, you know, we were all for it. But two, the stadium, whoever's working on the stadium now is a local, graduate Gonzalez. That's going to be doing the project, the Gonzalez Stadium. It's going to get all refurbished and everything. So we want to use local people. So especially if they graduate from Gonzalez High. I don't know if you heard, they want to put AstroTurf at the, I know some off, but they want to put grass, but the NFL is fighting AstroTurf, they want it out. So, but local people, it's the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Oh. Martinez?
I'll keep it short. I agree with both of them. Locals better.
Thank you.
No one else.
No one else is rushing up. Estella, do we have anyone via Zoom?
No comment.
Mary, anyone via email?
No comments via email.
Bringing it back to council, any additional comments?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve resolution, oops. Yeah, flip the page.
2023-60.
Is it 60?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yep.
then I was on the right page. I'm the long meeting. I move that we approve resolution number 2023-60, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Gonzales authorizing execution of the master services agreement with Harrison Associates.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Funk, would you do the next one, please?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me, Mr. Councilmember Funk. If we can have the youth council move their comments up. I don't want to keep them here too late because again, they have
They
a
got school.
homework and dinner and,
Yes.
so
Let's-
maybe we can move her up so
Absolutely.
that we can,
I
dismiss her.
totally agree. Commissioners, you're up.
Our updates have resulted in a great progressive outcome on bringing GYC into Club Rest at the high school, along with having 15 responders and having orientation ready set by the 23rd of this Saturday. We are also currently working on conducting interviews this week, as well as staying in touch with the build and design team about the summary of inputs, looks, and feels of the Gonzalez Community Center.
That's it? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And you're free to go. Okay. Go take care of that homework.
Thank you for your time. All right, item number 18, public hearing to consider adoption of ordinance number 2023-140, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Gonzales amending Title 11 Building Regulations of the Gonzales City Code by the addition of new chapter 11.56, streamlined permitting process for electric vehicle charging stations.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have nothing further to add to the staff report, and I believe the title and the conclusion there pretty much wraps up exactly what it is.
All right.
Concludes staff's presentation.
That's good. Thank you, sir. We'll go ahead and open this up again to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item may do so at this time. Yes.
All right, Henry Martinez Jr. I don't know why we're trying to put in charging stations. Everybody knows our grids can't even hold it. This is not even a time for this, let alone be spending money as if you guys see how the economy is going right now. I just paid $6.50 a gallon. It doesn't outweigh itself. How many people in town have a electric vehicle? Not many. I want to say probably 95% of town has gas vehicle. This just seems a waste of money. And then if you go ahead with it, you're just putting more stress on our grid. Nothing much to say.
Thank you. No one else? Okay. Stella, do we have any comments via Zoom?
No comments.
Okay. Do we have any comments via email?
No comments via email.
Then I'll go ahead and close the public meeting and bring it back to council.
These are from the grant that we received, correct?
I think this is just an expedition of the permit
Yeah.
process.
Separate deals.
Yeah, and as much as we hate to admit it, we're gonna be forced to go into electric. That's where California's headed, whether we like it or not.
And if I'm not mistaken, going from the prior meeting and Tammy can confirm, we're just aligning to the state code.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
not doing things specific. We're aligning
Yeah,
to the state requirements.
If I
correct?
may, maybe a little report would have helped.
Yeah,
Thank you,
really.
thank
We're coming in line with state law, which is basically don't make a big deal when you need to add EV stations at homes, residences, businesses, and institutions. Have it be an over-the-counter is too fast, a streamlined process where the building official can approve stations when they're proposed by others. It's a separate deal if we have a grant or we're seeking to install stations on our own self. They're separate. They both use the word EV, but that's the commonality.
Yeah, personally, I'm waiting for the autonomous vehicle so I can buy one and be able to get driven. Oh, I'm really looking forward to it, but until they prove out their safety, I'm not ready to
That's right.
go out and buy it.
And with that, Mr. Mayor, to align to our state code, I'll waive second reading, read by title only, and adopt ordinance number 2023-140. Make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Last one, Mr. Funk.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, item number 19, Introduce, waive reading and read by title only, ordinance number 2023-141, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Gonzales authorizing the purchase and use of an unmanned aerial system drone and making findings in compliance with Gonzales Police Department Policy Manual 709 military equipment.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is a sort of a straightforward purchase item on the agenda, but with the overlay of compliance with the military equipment policy that we adopted back in 2022. So let's start first with the proposed purchase. The police department has expressed an interest in desire to purchase an unmanned aerial system, better known as a drone. They did quite a bit of homework and came up with what they believe to be the best model for the city police department use, which is the identified DJI Matrix 30T basic combo package that would be offered by General Pacific Inc. The drone is equipped with thermal and high zoom camera capability, features the department believes that are necessary for effective use. The purchase would also include, of course, accessories such as a remote console, battery charger, and it also would include training and customer assistance once the unit was purchased. The price quote that the police department received for the equipment in question is $11,441. The police department will use the equipment in accordance with a Gonzales Police Department Policy 609. So, you know, the city has an adopted set of policies and procedures, and embedded within that particular set of procedures, there is a policy that has to deal with these unmanned aerial units. The proposed use, and the chief may want to elaborate, but right now, if you recall, this whole issue came up about the possibility of purchasing a drone after the 4th of July that we recently had, and how it might be useful to have had something like that to be up in the air and observe where, you know, the worst offenders were offending and taking place and so forth, and have a response then due to the drone being able to see those. But so the planned use would be during holidays, be helpful in locating missing persons, coordinating city responses during emergencies, and assistance during the service of warrants. And in addition to having to comply with the city's own policy 609, we had to comply with FAA policies and so forth. We had to have a trained operator, and the city's in the process right now, the PD, of having someone get trained to be able to use actually the drone that would be purchased. As I mentioned, the proposed purchase price is $11,441. Our code has provisions that say that any purchase of equipment over $5,000 requires us to go out to bid. However, there are a number of exceptions. One of the exceptions that's called out in your staff report and in the ordinances before you is in section 316.05083, which provides that there's an exception from having to go out to bid when the equipment that you intend to purchase is only available from a single vendor. In this particular case, the model and the equipment that they want, the thermal and the resolution equipment, is only available from the one vendor from whom they received a quote, which is General Pacific Inc. So we believe that that exception could be used for the purchase without having to go out to bid. Okay, deep breath. So that's just the purchase part of this staff report. The overlay is that, if you recall, in 2022, pursuant to AB 481, the city was required to enter into and prepare and adopt a policy for the use of military equipment. And under both that policy as well as the law that compelled us to adopt that policy, a drone is considered military equipment. So in order to purchase any military equipment, we had to do it by way of ordinance, which is unusual. We don't normally have to purchase equipment through ordinance, and we have to make specific findings. So we have prepared a ordinance this evening for your consideration for introduction, waiver of reading and reading by title only, that sets forth the necessary findings that are in compliance with the military equipment policy that we have in place, and then also contains the language that would allow us to dispense with bidding and so forth, and authorizes the purchase of the drone. We rounded the price up just because oftentimes you run into unexpected costs. The quote that we received did not include taxes and shipping costs, and so we figured we are going to have some additional costs related to the purchase. So that's why the ordinance has been drafted for a total purchase price not to exceed $12,000.
Anything else, Mike?
That's it.
Okay. We'll go ahead and open this up to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item on the agenda, please do so now.
Strongly opposed of any kind of military grade equipment. This is a small town. What are we, a bunch of criminals here? And I have fought for privacy, to have an eye in the sky in everybody's home, let alone with a camera. What is it, a 42 megapixel camera and a 12 megapixel camera, including infrared, thermal, and laser? Yeah, that's a really good idea. I did my research on that little drone you guys are looking at, 8 pounds, you know. That's a no. No, privacy is key. You know, this should have been brought up separately on its own to the whole entire public, not just this. This should have been pulled for a separate thing. A lot of people are not going to be okay with this. What, there's only what, 8 people here? That's not enough to make a decision off this. I don't need an eye in the sky looking into my home. I have a fence for a reason. You know, I believe in warrants. Ain't no free peep shows, no nothing happening around my place. No, this is completely wrong. And to even consider it, no. If this was brought up under the fire department for emergency situations, different story, but not for the police. You know, what are we just looking for charges now? Yes, if you guys mentioned this is, I read the whole report. For events, you guys are specifically pinpointing this for the 4th of July. And the law on illegal fireworks, you have to be seen lighting those in order to get caught or charged. So now we're looking for crimes without people knowing? That's not gonna fly. But lucky enough, I got the frequency to you guys' little drone already. It's posted on their website. Put up a frequency jammer, boom, the little thing falls to the ground. But no, I'm not tolerating spying on homes without the permission of anybody or the courts. So this needs to be pulled back and properly addressed to the whole entire public, not just the people in this room.
You guys already know my stance on military equipment. You give them the AR-40 and they pull it out when it's a knife thing. That's how they handle military equipment. We should be restricting that rifle when and how it should be used. You allow this drone to come in, then you're gonna allow him to have a tank, an armored vehicle. What's next? You know, military equipment does not belong in our small little town because time after time, they have abused our property rights, come to our yards without warrants. They come for searches and haul away vehicles from our property without any just cause. That's what cost your chief the job because he pulled a car out of my property and I asked you guys to pay me back $5,000. I have not seen one penny of my $5,000 from my personal property removed without a warrant. And time, they have shown us that we cannot trust them. And you guys need to decide if they're willing to open up and talk to us, then I can see the drone. But he's willing to stand there for months with LULAC and not answer their questions. And you want to give him a drone who he's not going to be accountable for it? And who just sit in his office and be quiet about it? LULAC was arguing here that they were trying to talk to him for 6 months. And I've been trying to get him to understand that they're in the wrong for 10 years. 10 years. They dragged me out of here. There was a disturbance. And there was no disturbance. There was no hammer pound. And the chief says I was disturbing the meeting. And can we trust them? Has anybody been calling me that why was I dragged out of this meeting? That day that I was dragged and accused of hitting somebody, and that person should have been charged with a fake report? No, he changed it to disturbance. And Mr. Mayor, you didn't bang the gavel. And you want to trust him and trust him with military equipment? When they pull out the rifle for whatever reason that don't need to? A knife is not the reason to take out the machine gun or the automatic weapon. If the guy's shooting you back with the AK-47, I can see the rifle coming out. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience?
Roman Barba. I'm against the drone too. Reason they say 4th of July, but one thing about 4th of July is that the 4th of July should be shut down. There shouldn't be any fireworks sold here, that would cut down on the problems we have on 4th of July. And two, the money to spend on a drone, the city is already starving for money, right? So why are you gonna spend money on a drone? Also, what happens if you're out there with the drone out there at night and something and out there during the 4th of July, someone's gonna try to shoot that thing down. It's a known fact. That's what they're gonna do. They're gonna put a gun at it and shoot at it. And when are they gonna use it? I mean, they're gonna use it in certain times. I think, like Mr. Martinez says here, there's no trust. And some of the guys that are running the police department, and I'm sure you got comments or complaints on officers that they don't trust them, right? Or they did something wrong. You also don't have enough staff, enough police departments. So who's going to be running this drone, right? If you only have 2 or 3 police officers on duty, and you can have somebody running a drone, really? And sir, right, it's the community is not going to want this. There's only 8,000 people here. I could see if the city was 80,000 people, but 8,000 people here, and you want to get a drone, really? I don't think so. Yeah, that's right. It's maybe the fire department. Yeah, if there's a fire that could send that drone out or something like that, or a medical issue. But the police department, I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Rosa Rodriguez, 307 Ayrshire Way. My voice is getting hoarse now. Well, first of all, I want to thank my husband because it's his birthday and he's here instead of being home. But, beside the point, this is what I want to say. What I do want to say is I did report the use of a drone. It was not the police department because they don't have one, apparently. A drone that was right on top of my head as I was getting into my van. I mean, so already, there's residents out there that are using it when they're not supposed to be using it. And, I look at my shower window and, here I'm blocking it out because I saw that drone pass through and I don't want people looking at me when I'm taking a shower, obviously. And so I understand the privacy concern, but at the same time, and the infrared concern, but at the same time, I'm also thinking about my young adults. I'm thinking about my family. Okay. This was taken on the 4th of July that family lost a loved one. Okay. This was taken on that. And this is my house, by the way. And this picture was recorded July 4th, 2003 at 9:08. At 9:08. I did not know the proper protocol on who to call to report this. What did I do? I said, okay, this is gonna embers, it's gonna catch a fire on fire. Common sense, right? I called 911. 911 tells me, no, you're not supposed to call 911 because there's not a fire in progress. you're supposed to call the non-emergency number. And this is what I told her. I said, well, I feel this is an emergency because guess what? These fireworks are coming from somebody in the back, and there's only a row of houses that live in the back of my house. And if I know geometry correctly, I know which house they're coming from. And so I told her, you know, and these, I could see where they're coming from. And, you know, there were illegal fireworks right in my street. And what I'm coming to is, you know, at 11 something, there was a house that was actually on fire. So thank God it was not my house. And guess why it wasn't my house? Because my husband got up there with a hose. He got up there with a water hose. He shouldn't have to go up there with a water hose. My mom died because she fell and she broke her hip. I don't have to have my husband go up there with a water hose on my roof. So to sum it up, yes, we do need a drone, but there has to be, you know, policy tied to it on certain occasions, especially the 4th of July, because this is not the first house that has been burnt. The other house that was burnt, I believe there was military people living there and they lost, you know, because it was a rental. So on certain occasions, like for the fire department, that's where we need them, emergency situations, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Alfredo. The only thing that I wanna say, but I believe the drone is, for me, I'm fine. If I don't do nothing wrong, I don't have nothing to worry about it. But these people don't understand the rules, the illegal fireworks. That has to be do something. The drone used in those days is fine. That's fine for me. So I glad that if you can get it, get it. Because if don't do anything, people don't listen. People don't care about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. And by the way, happy birthday. Thank you for being here with us. Anyone else? Anybody? Stella, anybody via Zoom?
No comment.
Mary, anybody via email?
Comments via email.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public comment period and bring it back to council discussion. I have one question for Michael. The drone is being purchased and it's gonna be run by the police department. Is that also something the fire department can use, or is that strictly to the police department?
The drone's classified by title as a military equipment, meaning that the military has a Department of Defense guidelines, and if they use a certain item, such as a drone, then law enforcement wants to use the same type of item, even though we don't really consider it military equipment. It falls under those rules and regulations for military equipment. AB 41 was passed, as you well familiar with, we have a resolution supporting that to list all of our military equipment as classified under the Military Department of Defense regulations. So the fire department's more than welcome to use the drone in fire situations, but it would have to be under the direction of the police department because they acquire military equipment. And it falls under I mean, they go out and get their own if they want. Sure, they have the same process and procedures, but we're not gonna be stingy with the item. If it needs to be used for any, issue for the city, then obviously we'll do that. The police department has a 3-page policy pertaining to drone usage, deployment, circumstances. There'll be additional protocols put in place if this is approved. It's not going to solve the issue of illegal fireworks. It's just another tool to aid us in the ability to identify and arrest, prosecute those who choose to use illegal fireworks. And hopefully, prevent another fire. So, or at least cut down.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fire department's more than welcome to use it whenever they need to use it, but they have to be under our guidelines. It's a very rigid process to go through to be able to, well, as you can tell, obtain one. And then to use it, you gotta meet FAA standards and rules and everything else, pilots, there's procedures that the city attorney has to follow to file with the FAA for next step in the process. So it's not just a matter of buying a drone and unpacking it and start flying it. There's all kinds of rules and regs behind it. So there are already policies in place that we plan to implement if it's approved for privacy concerns and things of that nature. So I'm concerned about the same things that we heard here tonight. You know, don't want a drone flying over my house either, but you know, if it's for certain situations and circumstances and it's needed, so be it.
Anybody have any additional comments or concerns? I can just share with you all, because I do have a sibling in law enforcement. And he has told me on a number of occasions, it's really saved their bacon because the infrared technology, they had a gang member who was involved in a deadly shooting that happened to run out to the river and was under a lot of underbrush. And because they had that drone, they were able to spot him. And I said, so how'd you guys get in all that brush? He says, we didn't. We sent the dog. And guess what? He gave up. As soon as he heard the dog coming, he gave up. But it was in large part it was because of the drone that they were able to capture this individual. So I honestly cannot see any of our officers becoming peeping Toms because of course they'd be in violation of the law. I'm hoping that by using the drone, that like Chief said, that hopefully next year there will not be a fire. And God forbid on a large event like we've had at the park, if somebody scounders off with a child, and as long as we know what the make and model of a car is, I'm sure that drone will be able to spot it a lot quicker than officers running all over town looking for it. So I hear your concerns. I understand what you're saying, but I think there's far more advantages than disadvantages. So for myself, I'm kind of in favor of that. So and now we'll entertain a motion for any movement on this subject. So.
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, I'll go ahead. So I move that we introduce, waive reading and read by title only, ordinance number 2023-141.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. All right, finally, we're getting down to oral communication from council and it's committee reports. First one is League of Cities. And I have nothing to report on League of Cities. And next is AMBAG.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we had actually had one main item for a review and approval this last meeting. And that was taking a look at the 2026 regional growth forecast. It's a process they've started. This is a forecast that will have a horizon year of 2050. The staff anticipation over the next few months is to have the initial process started, and they'll be working with staff, city staff, so forth, over the course of the next 9 to 12 months to work through that. But this is different in the arena as the forecast is more focused on what we're really anticipated to do, and what, as opposed to the state arena process of what the state needs us to do. So it'll be interesting to follow.
Yes, for sure.
That's all right.
All right, next is MST.
Okay, there will be a new line added, which is line 59, which will be from Salinas to Gilroy. We approved a 2-year partnership with the Santa Clara Valley Transportation. The line 59 is scheduled to begin Monday, 10:30, and will offer 4 weekday trips, no weekends. There was a presentation that was made by Ikuyo Yoneda, who is the marketing person for MST, which I found very interesting. It's data that has been collected over winter of 2022 and spring of 2023 that talked about where people are riding. In fact, I may want to share that data with you, Rosa, because it was very interesting. I found it kind of telling us who's riding, when they're riding. So I definitely want to pass that on to anyone who's interested. I'm thinking maybe we can even put it on our website somehow. The other issue that we had was, and I've been talking about this a little bit, and Patrick and Carmen have been involved, and I do want to just bring this up. We are putting in new MST bus stops that we're working on right now. They will be located in different parts of our community. Patrick and Carmen and I had some concerns about locations, because these are going to be the smaller buses that will be circulating all through town. So it's really important that we make sure we put these in locations that are conducive to the right spots. So I would like to thank MST for working with us on this. Patrick and Carmen have been instrumental in looking at what we have. Some locations are duplicated, which we thought were silly. And so we're working on that. That should, this week, we're actually going to do a ride around again to show them where we propose some of those spots either be eliminated or new ones created. So again, I'm telling residents, and also, as you all know, Carmen did a video for the 23 and the 23X, which I think is great. And we've been watching people get on the buses. It's important. Public transportation, I'm finding it more and more every day, how important it is. We talked about it tonight with this new proposed H2A housing. Those MST buses will be a part of that process, and we want to make sure that those buses circulate in the proper way. So anyway, that's all I have. And then the next meeting is October the 9th. So if anyone has any questions about MST or what's going on, just please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Right. And I think that's the end of it. Oral communication. Mr. Funk, would you like to start?
Again, and actually, yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and actually tonight, I have nothing, thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Stowe.
Just a couple of upcoming events. The Adventure Seeking Senior Luncheon will start its new year this Thursday at the St. Theodore's Parish Hall. And I believe it starts at about 11:30. And then the St. Theodore's Church Carnival is coming up on Sunday, October 8th. It starts at 11 in the morning and goes through about 5 or 6 in the evening. That's all I have.
Ms. Worthy.
All I want to say is thank you to our residents that come to these meetings and participate. I mean, I know you think that we don't care, that we get annoyed and all that, but we don't. We need to hear it. And unfortunately, we don't have more people that come in and tell us how they feel about things. I appreciate it, and I know most everybody up here does. So thank you for that, and that's all I have.
I wasn't here last meeting, and I'm not sure if I got that comment into you all, but I think it's important to celebrate what we are producing, the young people of this community. On the 1st, I believe, of September, we had a new CHP officer graduate from the academy, Natasha Lugo. She's sadly been placed in Oakland. I say that because that is a tough neighborhood to patrol. But I know, speaking to my own son, there is such a desire and a need for women in law enforcement. In Oakland, I guess there's quite a few female combatants. And so it's always nice to have a female available to do, tap down. And so she's going to be an invaluable asset to CHP. And I give her a lot of kudos because she was actually a music major. So what a switch. And I'm glad she did, because the need and the desire for law enforcement, we all know what we get here, that as quickly as we can train them, chief, let them go. But that's okay. I know it's a tough job out there, and there's lots of cities competing for law enforcement. So I'm glad that Gonzales is now produced. I believe that's our 4th CHP officer that I'm aware of, not including all the sheriffs, county sheriffs, and other police officers, as well as, of course, folks that work at the prison. So I think that just speaks well of our community, that these young people are stepping up to do their part. And it's a thankless unforgiving job. The other thing that I had a resident come to me and I thought, I want you guys just dwell on this for a bit, okay? No decisions need to be made tonight. But he said, you know, I really think this community needs to do permit parking. And I says, why do you say that? And he says, well, you know, most folks in our community use their garage, not as a garage, but as a storage space. So then, and if they have 4 vehicles, right? 2 in the driveway and 2 on the street. He says, and I keep seeing this growth of vehicles in the entire community of Gonzales. And I really think that folks should be limited to permitted parkings. So if they want to use a garage as storage, that's fine. 2 cars are permitted. If they want more cars, then there should be a fee for those cars. And he says it'll greatly improve property values, and it will also minimize the impact that is being created. And I've seen this in different streets in the community where people put their garbage cans out so that they have a place to come back and park. And I think there's some merit to that idea because, you know, I get it. You got 5 kids, you need 5 cars because that's usually what happens. But it shouldn't be on your neighbors to pay for that. You know, and if you want to use a garage as storage space, then so be it. You can purchase a storage shed from Costco or any of those places that you could. And a lot of stuff, I mean, I'm at that age where I'm going through stuff and going, do I really need this? No, do any of my kids want it? No. Done. And I'm, you know, I am blessed that, we have a 2-car garage and I only have 1 car. So Eva will not park hers on the driveway, that's for sure. But not everybody else does. But again, I look at Rincon Circle, I look at, what's the other side? Fairview Drive. And I mean, they're all impacted. Also, on the south end from all the apartments, the impact there. And, you know, it's a thought. Like I said, nothing needs to come of it today, but that was just a thought. I thought it was a pretty decent thought. Because, I mean, we're just overrun by cars. We really are. And it's kind of sad to see in the evenings. I mean, anybody gone out to Cipriani Estates? And that was my argument when we did Cipriani Estates, that the driveways were far too small and it would be impacting everybody that would walk around that neighborhood. Try walking in that neighborhood at night without stepping on the street. You can't. It's just the number of vehicles. I remember that. I had, the second one made sense because he also shared with me that in South Salinas, they implemented that and the property values just increased tremendously. I had a daughter that went to Santa Clara and they had the same issue over there. So she didn't have that permit tag, you know, she was paying a fine. And I was okay with that because, you know, she wanted her car. You want your car, baby, you gotta pay for it. I don't know. I believe there's merit to that, but again, I don't want to come to any conclusion tonight. Just thought I'd throw that out there. That's all I have, and we'll go move on to oral communication from staff, managers.
Yeah, so you all reminded me to share with you that our 2 CSUMB interns started this week, and I think I mentioned last time one of them is from Gonzales, and so we're really excited to have both of them. But you know, somebody homegrown that's going to CSUMB and helping us look at our social media and our website is something council's pointed out. So getting some additional eyes on that is really good for us. Wednesday through Friday is National League of Cities, so I will be out there. And then just want to remind you that the Rianda Cooler Project is going to LAFCO this Monday for approval. So keep your fingers crossed, everything's dotted and our T's are all crossed. And so hopefully that will continue to move forward smoothly, and I hope to have good news for you after the meeting. If you are interested in joining, it's at 2:30, but we'll update you if you can't. And then just put these on your calendar. October 21st, there will be a movie in the park. And then October 28th, we are planning a fall festival downtown. So more to come on that as well. Recreation is working away, getting some of those details tied up. And then Tavin, I think, has something to share as well.
Yeah, just wanted to remind folks about the citywide yard sale coming on the weekend of the October 14th and 15th. And flyers went out with Tri-Cities with on a trifold, and our information is there. And what doesn't go that weekend can maybe be taken to the landfill if people want to do that. Regarding our ADUs and our pre-designed set, we're going to be ready to offer public service at the counter tomorrow. To, it's not the full package, here you go, but we'll be ready to inform people on how to customize their site plan and the different fees that will be involved. So that'll be up in speed, and eventually we'll have webpage resources for that.
Have we determined a fee for those plans, Tevin, or is it just?
Yeah, it looks like it's gonna be right about 405.
405.
405. And so where people might have thought they're free, what that is you did not have to pay for a designer
Right.
to customize those plans, which would have been several thousands of dollars. So
Plus plan review.
Plus plan review, correct. So people will still need to show how it's gonna fit on their property. And just also as a reminder, these are not for garage conversions. These are standalone units. One is a little less than 500 and another one is as large as about 750 square feet. The reason we didn't do garage conversions is there's so many different construction types that we couldn't pre-approve those with meeting building codes. So those would be customized situations. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any update on that report from the fire? Thanks. So maybe next month we'll get that report. Okay, thank you. Mr. Frank, would you please read that last one where we're going to adjourn and go into closed session? I'd appreciate it, sir.
Definitely, Mr. Mayor. At this time, closed session, any member of the public may address the council on a closed session item appearing on the agenda. Speakers shall have a limited time of 3 minutes. Please be brief and to the point. Item number 24, the city council will recess to closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 to confer with and give instructions to its real property negotiator concerning the lease of a property located at on the city's water tower located adjacent to Fifth Street and US Highway 101. Mr. Mayor.
We stand adjourned from the public meeting. We'll give staff an opportunity to. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we actually do have public comment?
Yeah.
We do have public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have a public comment. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I apologize. Anybody from the public wishing to make a comment may do so at this time? All right. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to open up the public comment. Ms. Rodriguez.
Rosa Rodriguez, 307 Ayrshire Way. I know everybody wants to go home. Believe me, I'm diabetic. I want to go home. It's his birthday. Believe me, I want to go home. The only thing with public comments is, of course, because they're in a closed session, we don't have a lot of information. So we don't really know what the closed, session is going to be to be able to comment. Unless it's, I don't know, providing antennas for cell service or whatnot. But I just, want to make sure that we're not going to get cancer from putting all that stuff up there. So, so I'm just saying we can't really make a public comment if we really don't know what you guys are going to be talking about in closed session. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, nobody else wishing to make a comment? I apologize. Anyone via Zoom?
No comment.
No comment. Mary, any comments?
No comment. No comments,
Okay.
David.
All right, thank you. We stand adjourned.